Hello, gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about how to make adjustments on defense. Now, this is kind of a beginner slash intermediate tip. If you feel like you can make all the adjustments available to you in the game, then this video is probably not for you, but you can jump around using the timestamps if you'd like. And then I'm also going to include a full quick reference page on my site that you guys can look at to see every button combination available to you on defense to make your adjustments. So basically, if you're in the middle of a game and you need something to refer to as opposed to going through this video or just trying to make the adjustments on the fly, I will give you guys a sheet to refer to, which will make things a lot easier. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to start with our defensive line. And how you adjust your defensive line is going to be D-pad to the left, and that opens up this menu in the bottom left. And you have two different sections. You have Shift D-line and point of attack. Many of you guys probably know how to make at least these adjustments. It's really nothing new. It's kind of self-explanatory. I'll briefly go through it, but Shift D-line, if you use your left stick to the left, it's going to shift them left, and then left stick to the right shifts them right, left stick down pinches, and then left stick up is going to spread them. I'm sure many of you guys know those things, so it's kind of basic, but just for those of you who are super new, that's what it does. And then the point of attack, the only thing I really want to mention with this is that people call things differently. So for instance, you see right stick up as slant outside. You'll hear a lot of people in videos, including myself, say things like crash up. That's the same thing. Slant outside and crash up are the same thing. And then for the other ones, crash right, crash down, crash left. It's all synonymous. So don't get too confused when you hear me or others talking about crashing. It's the same thing as slanting. And then the other thing I want to talk about with that, and by the way, you do that with the right stick as opposed to the left stick. And one thing that's kind of important for you to know is that the crashing matters a lot. So in regards to setting up different blitzes or setting up different run defenses, the way you crash your defensive line matters a ton. So for instance, look at your defensive tackle. You see how he's doing this, he's basically two gapping. Well, I just crashed to the left and now he's doing something different. So things like that, they just matter a ton. So don't take it lightly. And that's kind of the basic gist of doing the shifting and the point of attack stuff. And then to take things a step further, and this is where things get more complicated, if you guys want to quick adjust an individual defensive lineman, which is incredibly important if you want to play at a high level, you do D-pad left and then D-pad left again, and then now you have this available to you. You have X, Y, and A. You can just pick one of these defenders and do something with them. So for instance, we're going to hit X. Now, these are going to be the adjustments available to you for defensive linemen. And I would say not all of these are super usable. I'd say the ones that are, really good are going to be, your bluff blitz, your man up. For an edge defender, you might put them in a hard flat. But, putting them in seam flats and curl flats and, spies can be good as well. You don't really need it right now against escape artists, but, well, since there's no escape artist. Overall, I'd say the one that you really want to mix in is this bluff blitz. This is something that a lot of people don't know about. So D-pad left twice, select X, and then right stick to the right is bluff blitz. And then one thing that I'll talk about with the bluff blitz is he turns into a 3-rec hook. So what this is going to do is help you a ton with somebody who might be spamming a drag. So for instance, let me go ahead and blitz this guy, and then let's look at what the route combo is on the field right now. So check this out. I'll run it like this and watch how this 3-rec plays. He's going to play the drag. He doesn't actually play it super well. But he plays in the shallow part between the hashes. And he plays it for long enough. This is not the best example of a 3-rec balling out or anything, but this is an adjustment. If you're playing coverage, it's so good because you don't have to stay in the middle of the field. This guy can play the drag for long enough before the pressure gets there. So things like that are really good for you to do. So remember, D-pad left twice, then select the icon, and then you could do maybe something like this. Let's do D-pad left twice, hit A this time, let's do right stick up, and then man him up on the running back. So now that defensive alignment's man up on the running back, we can do something like this. Let's snap the ball. And now he runs out with the running back. Right there, he doesn't really get out there and defend him really well because he presses the tight end. But these are just things that you need to add to your game if you want to basically become more advanced. because these are like really good wrinkles that allow you to play in like a very non-traditional way and can confuse your opponent. So those are the basic defensive line adjustments. Let's move on. Okay, next we're going to talk about linebacker adjustments. So to open this menu, D-pad right, and then in the bottom left you have shift linebacker and linebacker assignments. Now the shifting is, it's the same thing as defensive line. It's pretty self-explanatory. Left stick left will shift them left. I was using this guy, so he's not going to move. Left stick right will shift them over. It'll be something like that. It's pretty self-explanatory. As for the other part, I do not recommend using these adjustments, and here's a couple reasons. So if you look at these, you'll see like left outside linebacker blitz. Let's go ahead and do it with right stick left. And then you're going to see he's going to blitz. Now, one thing you might not have noticed is that while technically this is the left outside linebacker, he is the right of screen outside linebacker. So I just find it kind of confusing. I'd rather just refer to things by, right of screen outside linebacker or left of screen outside linebacker. If you guys don't have a problem with that, go ahead and use it. What I prefer to do is D-pad right twice, hit A, and then right stick down. Like that's how personally I would do it, because at least I know I'm not getting confused and that the guy I'm trying to target is properly getting targeted. So, or I should say, I don't know why I said target, like the guy I'm trying to adjust. So for the other ones, zone all, for instance, if I go to linebacker blitz 0, if your linebackers are blitzing like this and you do D-pad right and then right stick up, they're all going to turn to hook curls. And I don't know, I don't find this incredibly useful. I find my linebackers being put in like man ups or like flat zones more often than not necessarily hook curls. But, it is an option for you if you really do want it. And then blitz all is really not something you're going to be using too often either. So overall, I don't find that section super helpful. But, the quick adjust is helpful. So D-pad right again. Now you have the option to hit X, Y, or A. Or I guess on PlayStation would be X, square, X, and I don't even know, triangle. So you can select one of these, and then here's all of your zone and man adjustments. And all of these are useful. Unlike the defensive line, every single one of these should and could be used at some point. And it's just kind of up to you to decide, how you want to use it. So if, like, for instance, I'm going to cover 2 right now. Actually, I'm not. Let me reset it. A traditional kind of safe setup could be something like this, right? You could do something like this, right? And then maybe blitz this guy. And now you have a double Mabel on the left. You have a hook on the slot. You have a deep zone that's kind of protects your safeties from anything trying to split them. And overall, this has just traditionally been a safe way to play cover 2. So you can do that with these linebackers by putting one in a hard flat and then putting one in a middle third. So go ahead, snap. And, that's not really the purpose of this video, but just showing you that you can use these linebackers in specific adjustments to improve whatever coverage you're using. So you don't have to just, play stock cover 2, because I just don't really find stock cover 2 that good. So that's kind of that is the purpose of this video, is to make sure that you guys can spice up your coverages a little bit and not have just stock stuff every single time, because it's just very predictable. So that's how you adjust your linebackers. Okay, so this is going to be the longest part of the video because there's so much to cover when it comes to the secondary. So bear with me. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible. But what we're going to do to open the secondary menu is going to be Y or triangle. And then what you're going to see is we have all of this. We have legit so many tools available to us for our secondary. Now we're going to start with what we see here on this menu, which is you can do give cushion, which is like back off your coverage. You can do base align, which is going to give you basically a stock kind of look. You're not going to be man aligned over the receivers. And then you have press, which is obviously going to get up on the receivers and press. And then show blitz, which is like you bring everybody up a little closer towards the offensive line or to the line of scrimmage, not just pressed up on the receivers. So let me show you each one, because each one's pretty different. Left stick up, that's going to back everybody off. I don't really think this is a super good adjustment. I just think that, you might use this in a prevent type situation, end of half. You want to just really make sure you don't get bombed, nobody gets outran. That's really the only time you're going to use this. Otherwise, you're just giving up way too much space. Your safeties are so far back, and you're going to give up way too much underneath. So don't really use back off too often or give cushion. As for the other ones, all of these other ones are useful. So base align, so left stick right, what that's going to do is, I don't know why it's not doing it with this guy on the left. Let me do it like this. Oh, it's because it's because of the back off thing. So let me redo it in a second. So base align, the only time you really want to use base align, so you see how this guy on the right, there's no receiver over there, but he's all the way out there towards the boundary. And that's because we base aligned. And what that's going to do is give you more of a stock alignment. It's going to sometimes help disguise your coverage better. If like you could be in a man coverage and you base align and they don't know that you're in a man. You know, it's kind of a disguise tool. It's also good for helping you set up blitzes and making sure that guys are aligned how you want them to be aligned. But I will say, you know, right now in this current meta, base align isn't that good. I mean, there are use cases for it, but you typically just want to be in a man align situation and then press. And then, you know, this is kind of the look you want because it's more aggressive. It's hard for them to make the reads when your defensive backs are pressed up on the receivers. And it's just a more aggressive look. And in most cases, it's hard to punish. So I would say press is really the one on the left that you want to use the most often, especially in this game. You know, it could easily change in Madden 24 where you just don't want to press. You'll just get burned. As of right now, it's really not that bad. So press is going to be your man adjustment on the left. As for the right, this is going to be your shading. Shading is extremely important when it comes to man coverage. So let me switch to a man. And then let me go ahead and press. And then one thing I want to show you guys is shade over the top. So right stick up, shade over the top. If you're new to Madden, you need to start using this in certain cases because what this is going to do is your guys are not going to play press. They're going to basically trail, or not trail, but they're just going to press air, I should say. Like they're not actually going to put hands on the receiver. They're just going to run. And it makes it really hard for them to get outran. So if you were like playing, you know, a lot of press and you feel like, you know, your guys are just getting beat deep, doing shade over the top is going to do this. You see how he just backpedals and runs with them. It's really hard to beat a shade over the top. So these little shadings that I'm doing with man coverage are really important. Now, you know, there's use cases for zone as well, which I'll get to. Let me finish talking about man first. Let me go back to man. And then you have the other options with like shade inside, shade outside, shade underneath. Shade underneath, I don't recommend using if you don't know what you're doing for man coverage because you can get beat deep super easily. So I'll shade underneath right now, right stick down. Then I'll put X on a streak. Okay, so right there, it did not end up beating him, but just take my word for it. If you shade underneath, they start playing really aggressively. It's usually with like a safety that's manned up. So let's go ahead and do something more like this. Let's do you know what? Let me put this inside slot receiver on a streak, and then let me go ahead and shade down. Then what you're gonna see, you see how that guy just gets completely outran. I know it's a linebacker versus a receiver. It doesn't matter. It usually happens when they're playing like not an actual press position. And this is when it's going to happen. So, you know, when you're playing man, be careful with this shade underneath. It's really a gamble, and I just don't think it's worth it. For the inside and outside shading, it's kind of dependent on what you think they're going to be using. So shade outside is the most common adjustment right now. So right stick right. And what that's going to do in man coverage is going to help versus a corner route. So let's go ahead and press shade outside. In this case, it's probably not going to help too much. But let's try this corner route from our tight end on the right. So right there ends up being a completion anyways. But it does help. Like shading outside is definitely going to help take away outside breaking routes. And that's kind of what it means. So you would think, you know, when you shade outside, you know, you're more prone to inward breaking routes, and you'd be correct. But at the same time, it's not like a super big deal. Like, let me go ahead and play man coverage again, and then I'll shade outside, and then we'll do some we'll keep these inward breaking routes on the left. We'll run it like this. So look, you see how we were shaded outside, but they still box those two guys? That's why, in my opinion, the two best shadings right now are shade over the top and shade outside. So you can actually use those two in tandem. So let's say that you don't want to have the press animations. You want to shade over the top. And then let's say that you're expecting them to run corner routes. You can shade outside. So you're now shaded up and you're shaded out. And you can use that kind of shading. You don't have to use just one. You can use what's the term? I think bidirectional is what I'm looking for, is, you know, how you can use the two different ones in tandem. You can also use them in isolation. That's completely up to you. If you guys are confused by this, please let me know in the comments. I'm trying to make this simple while also telling you guys, you know, all the tools you have available to you. Okay, so I've covered all the shading, and then we have individual, quick adjust, sticks, and man align. So let me talk about the quick ones first, which is going to be like sticks. So when you hit LB or L1, what that's going to do is make your secondary play the sticks. So the sticks in football is the first down marker. So let's say you're at a third and 15, and you want your defense to basically give up everything underneath that first down marker. Well, that's what you're going to do. You're going to hit sticks, and that's going to make them drop to the first down marker. Now we're in practice mode, so it's just a 10-yard distance. You know, it's not worth using here, but you know, in any situation where it's like a 4th and 20, a 3rd and 15, any kind of long distance situation, you know, it might be worth using sticks, just because you have the ability to basically drop and keep everything in front of you. Now, I will say the sticks is not the only thing you should be using in those situations. You should also be using coaching adjustments and dropping your zone drops to really deep and making sure they just can't get over your zones. But that's kind of another topic entirely. We're mainly just talking about how to make your adjustments on defense. And then man align, what this is going to do, so Y and then RB, what that's going to do is it's going to make it look like you're playing a man coverage. So in this case, we were in a man coverage, but now we're in a Tampa 2, a cover 2 zone. Hit Y, RB, and now look at this. This cornerback comes from the other side of the field, and now he's lined up over the inside slot receiver, and that makes it look like it could be a man coverage. So in this case, you know, maybe man up to the slot, and at this point you're playing a zone, but he could easily think it's a man. And that's a great way to disguise your coverage, and I highly recommend it. I think man align, especially in a man meta, is really, really good, and you guys should take advantage of that. So I talked about the two quick ones. Let's talk about the other ones that are going to take a second. So Y and then A or X. So sorry, Y or triangle and then A or X is going to give you individual coverage things you can do. So you can select one of these receivers. So like, let's start with the outside with Devontae Parker, which is X. You can now do different things with him. So let's say you wanted to play a press coverage, but there's one guy you just want to play off coverage with. You can do right stick up. And at this point, he's playing off coverage and everybody else is pressed. You can hit Y, A, X, and then left stick down to get him back pressed. And then for the other options, you have just different individual shadings you can do. So you can do the shade outside, or I guess shade to his left, shade to the right. Then you got also do spotlight receiver, which it's an adjustment that nobody really knows what it does. Like the purpose of it is to give more attention to that receiver, but we don't know like this specific thing that it does. Like in man coverage, does it really make him play better against that man? Nobody truly knows. It's all guesswork, but it's something worth doing if you like have really a lot of trouble stopping a certain receiver. And you can just, you know, try it and make sure, or at least see if your defense has a chance of covering him by hitting spotlight receiver. And then for the other ones, you know, I've already talked about the shade left and shade right. It's basically the same thing as shade out and shade in on that individual receiver. And then for quick adjust, you just hit Y or triangle again, and then it's the same concept with all of these guys. So X, Y, B, L, B, A. So you have the cornerbacks and you have the safeties. There's going to be two different adjustments you can do depending on, actually three technically. You have an outside cornerback, you have a slot cornerback, and you have a safety. There's going to be different adjustments for each of those. So let's go ahead and start with the safeties. So LB or A. And then these are going to be all the adjustments you can put your safety into. And all of these are usable, and you should get familiar with all of these. Like I said, I'll have a quick reference sheet for you guys to look at so you're not completely confused during a game, and you can just quickly look at everything you can possibly do with a safety or an outside cornerback and make things very easy for you. If you hit Y twice or triangle and then hit X, you see you have an outside cornerback, and these are going to be the adjustments you can put your outside cornerback in. Now, all of these are also usable, and they're definitely all ones that you should be using. And then lastly, Y twice or triangle, and then hit Y or B for a slot cornerback. And then these are going to be the adjustments you have available to you for a slot cornerback. So yeah, that's going to be it for the secondary section. I know it was very long-winded. I might have rambled at parts, but if you guys have any questions whatsoever regarding it, please let me know in the comment section, because I know it's a lot of information. If you're new to the game, it's overwhelming. It's not super intuitive. Your fingers aren't going to know how to do it properly, and it just takes practice. You got to get familiar with it. I'm just here to make you aware of all the things that you can and cannot do in regards to adjusting your defense. So that's the most important section, the secondary section. Out of all three levels of the defense, that's the one you want to get most familiar with, because you can do the most things with it. But I'm going to show you one more thing that you can do with your entire defense. For the last part of this video, we're going to talk about how you can adjust your entire defense at once. So hit RB or R1. That's going to open up this menu here where you have spread your defense, shift your defense left, shift your defense right, and then pinch your defense. So I'm saying pinch your defense because it does actually pinch your entire defense. So let's go ahead and do left stick down. And then what that's going to do is your linebackers get pinched, your defensive line gets pinched, and then your secondary, or your cornerbacks more specifically, go into a press. So when you pinch your defense, your entire front seven will pinch and your secondary will press. That's important for you to remember. Then if you do RB again or R1 and then left stick up, that's going to spread your entire defense. So your entire front will get spread. This guy's kind of bugged out because I think I touched him. But your cornerbacks will back off as well as your safeties. Everything backs up. And then you have shift right. So these guys have been, let me go ahead and just snap this ball real quick so I can show you, because I touched those linebackers. So RB or R1, left stick right, that's going to shift your entire front. Your secondary will not do anything. It's the same if you shift them to the left, it just shifts your front. But yeah, I'd say the one that's most popular right now is just pinching your entire defense, because it gives you a really good kind of front. Now, again, in 3-3, you might not be pinching your defensive line. You might be keeping it like this and just having your linebackers pinched. But it's a quick way to get the press and get your front situated in just one adjustment. So I would say RB and then left stick down is a common adjustment. And then for your right side, you have guess play, which is you can run commit, which is run left, run right, run up middle. You know, those are like gamble type things that you can do. But the actual pass commit, which is right stick up, is actually quite useful. If you're playing somebody who's just passing nonstop and you just don't really see them running, then you can use D-pad, not D-pad, RB or R1, and then right stick up, and that's pass commit. And what that's going to do is your pass rush is going to be better at the cost of being worse in the run game. So let's say you hit RB and then right stick up for pass commit. Well, what that's going to do is if they call inside zone, you're now a little bit more prone. Like you're not going to get, really good sheds or anything like that. So I'll show you. Do quick base. So right there, we're against a very spread out front. So, you're not going to really see it there. But if you pass commit with a certain formation, like let's say dollar, where it's a very light formation where you have a lot of speed on the field, a lot of defensive backs, and then you pass commit, and let's say they're in a run heavy formation, like under center, like, I don't know, like single back jumbo or something like that, and you pass commit, what's going to happen is you have a chance of getting pancaked because your guys, that's just kind of something they've done to counteract people who just pass commit all game. So pass commit is easily the best of these options, but at the same time, be smart about when you use it. Don't just be doing it every single time, because if your guys start getting blown off the ball in the run game, you'll know why, because that is a give and take situation with pass commit. So just keep that in mind. And then the other important adjustment here is quarterback contain. So if you hit RB and open this menu, if you hit RB or R1 again, that's going to quarterback contain. And that's an incredibly important adjustment because Sometimes you need to keep the quarterback in the pocket. Certain blitzes will kind of call on you to use the quarterback contain. And in any Madden, you need to know how to contain. So that is definitely something you should remember, is hit RB to open this menu and then hit RB again, and that's quarterback contain. If you're new to the game, one thing I'll say about these contains is they're not very good for just getting after the quarterback, because what they basically do is they keep everything in the pocket. So as you can see, we still haven't gotten to the quarterback yet, but that's because we sent 3. I can't believe Mac Jones is still standing. Pay attention to what they do here as opposed to a regular pass rush. They basically get an arm on the tackle, and then they just kind of keep going outside. So right there, a 3-man rush with a contain, like, it's really not doing you any favors. But, let's say you do something more like, let's say the linebacker blitz 0, right? Pinch your linebackers, contain, and that's how you do the loop blitz. You have these 2 linebackers on a contain, and what that's going to do is keep everything in the pocket. Right there, it didn't work, but we also had a proper pass rush there. So that is definitely an adjustment that you should be familiar with. And then the last 2 things are option quarterback or option running back. I personally don't even use those. What I would recommend you do is just go to coaching adjustments. So press your right stick in to open coaching adjustments at the menu, and then you can go down to option defense and then do conservative if you want to play the quarterback, and then aggressive if you want to play the running back. And that's how I would personally do it. I wouldn't even worry about those 2 quick adjustments, but if you really want to, those are available to you as well. And then, like I said, with the sticks part of the secondary adjustments, always make sure these zone drops are like going towards or past the first down marker. So if, let's say it's like 4th and 15, I'd put my flats on at least 20, maybe even 25, and just make sure that those do not get over by like deep corners or crossers. So yeah, hopefully I covered everything I could in this video. I know it's super long-winded. If you stay through the whole thing, I love you, but it's really a lot of info. So make sure you guys check out the description for the link to that page so you guys don't have to watch this again, and you can just refer to that doc and then have everything in front of you. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, please drop a like and then subscribe for more Madden 23 content. It's greatly appreciated. And then that's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow.